Hello and welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we read Parasha Teitzei, in which we learn 74 of the 613 mitzvot. In these mitzvahs are included the mitzvah of marriage and the mitzvah of divorce. It's interesting to note that divorce is actually a mitzvah in the Torah. And the pasuk, the verse in which we learn about this mitzvah, is in Devarim 24:1, where it says, when a man takes a wife and is intimate with her, and it happens that she does not find favor in his eyes, because he discovers in her an unseemly moral matter, and he writes for her a bill of divorce, and places it into her hand, and sends her away from his house. And she leaves his house and goes and marries another man. So from here we learn that divorce is actually something that sometimes is needed in life. It's not something that we would like to do, but sometimes there is an open door for different cases and different situations in which life between two people becomes unsustainable. So the pasuk, the Torah, wants to tell us that the primary functions of a divorce actually is to strengthen the marriage, because if people didn't know they could divorce, then they would never work hard on their marriage. Like if you wouldn't be allowed to get a divorce, you would never try to save a marriage. And the first thing we do when a couple is not going in the right way, they try to save a marriage. They realize it's important to save a marriage. So there's always an open door to absolve a relationship, and your freedom is never taken from you. We have Behira, we have free will, and that's something that Hashem gave us. It's a gift He gave us, and even if this is not what He would want, sometimes it's necessary. So as tragic as divorce might be, Jewish religion believes in a way out. We don't believe in being stuck in a place where you cannot get out of it. There's three different Talmudic sages that studied this verse, and they arrived to very different conclusions about it. The first one was the school of Shammai, and Shammai taught that a man ought not to divorce his wife unless she is guilty of an immoral misconduct, as it says, because he discovers in her an immoral matter, as the pasuk says. So the school of Shammai, what it's saying is that a couple should never get divorced, never, 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 unless the wife is being unfaithful to her husband, and then this is a reason to get divorced. And he says that you should always fight to save the marriage, no matter what. And even if you're not in a happy marriage, it's important to make the sacrifice for the sake of marriage. And marriage is a unification of the souls. And maybe a couple can be living together and they're not deeply in love, but nevertheless, that connection is not severe, it's still there. And he says that oneness is intact, and God doesn't make mistakes by unifying this couple. Like when you marry somebody, it's not a mistake. Even if you eventually end up in a divorce, he was or she was your basher. It was meant to be. That union was meant to be, and it's up to us to see if we work on it and we make it work, or we don't. It's not in Hashem's hands. He puts people together, but to make it work, it's up to us. So this is the thought of the school of Shammai, and he says that we have the ability to make it work, and we should stick it out. In his words, we should stick it out, and we should go to a marriage counselor, or we should go to rabbis, or to go to a therapist, or do whatever it needs to be done to save the marriage, and view your marriage as you would if you, God forbid, would have a sick child. In a case like that, you would never stop trying to save that child. And this is the idea that the school of Shammai puts in our heads, that we should always try to fix it and save it no matter what. We should go to the end of the world to save it. Then the school of Hillel taught a man may divorce his wife even if she burned his food. Imagine that, because he discovered in her a malicious matter. So doesn't every wife burn their husband's food once in a while? Like, it has happened to me. And according to the school of Hillel, this is a reason to divorce your wife. But what he's saying here is that only if it comes from a malicious intent. If the wife is somebody that is malicious, that she's always making things to get her husband upset, and she burns the food on purpose, and she always is doing things to make him tick. And in this case, Rabbi Hillel is referring to that wife that it's unsustainable. Like, and he's talking really about spousal abuse, physical and psychological abuse, when you're immersed in a toxic marriage where there's a lot of suffering because the spouse is constantly torturing the other person with harsh words, with mistreatment. And in this case, Rabbi Hillel is all for divorce. And the Talmud says a person cannot live together with a snake in one basket. And he takes it from here. Shammai expects a person to sacrifice everything for marriage. Even if you're in a toxic marriage, he believes that you should sacrifice and be in that marriage. But Hillel understands human nature, and human nature doesn't allow a person to live in a basket with a snake. It's not sustainable. So he is all for divorce in a case like this. And the Torah, he says that the Torah is a Torah of peace, and the Torah of peace would not mandate a person to live in a house with another person that is constantly being abusive and toxic and torturing the spouse. Then comes Rabbi Akiva, and his opinion is that a man may divorce his wife even if he found a more attractive one than the one he has. So if he finds a more beautiful woman in the street, he should divorce his wife and leave her with her kids and just go with a new wife, a younger, nicer 20-year-old girl. And really what he means here, Rabbi Akiva is the ultimate romantic. And for Rabbi Akiva, a husband and a wife should be together because they want to be together. Not because they have to be together, but because they want to be together. And there's a passage in the Zohar in which Adam sings praises to Eve and says that a woman is a human, as a human being, surpasses an ape, that she's more beautiful than an ape. So what Rabbi Akiva was trying to tell us here is that a husband should view his wife as the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. He should never be comparing her to other women. He should only have eyes for his wife. And I remember many years ago, my husband asked Mr. Sammy Rohr if he could teach him about happiness, that he saw that he was a very happy man, and to give him some advice. And he said to him, for me, my wife is the most beautiful wife in the world. For me, my car, and he had an old car. For me, my car is the most amazing car in the world. For me, my home is the most incredible home in the world. And this is the way he looked at life. And this is what Rabbi Akiva is trying to teach us here, that the ideal marriage is the one in which for the husband, there is no other person like his wife. He's never looking at other women. He's not comparing her to another woman. For him, in his eyes, his wife is the top of the line. Just as an ape is not attractive, for him, other women are just like not attractive. So not only he feels, he says that a couple should be as one, but they should feel as one. And there's a story of Rabbi Levine, Ariel Levine, that he went to the doctor with his wife, and the doctor asked, what's the problem? And he said, our foot hurts. She was in pain, but for him, he was in pain too. And this is the outlook of Rabbi Akiva. This is how a marriage should be. So the knowledge of the possibility of divorce should be enough to make a decent marriage great. And love and marriage can be an institution that people are locked into. So the Torah doesn't believe that marriage should be a jail, a prison. And for love to flourish, people need to know they are choosing their spouse. It's very important to choose your spouse, to know who you're marrying. And God allows divorce because He loves marriage. So, in a nutshell, the school of Shammai teaches us the extent to which we have to fight for our marriage. We should never let it go down the drain. We should always fight for it and try to make it work and try to become a better person, a better spouse. We should always work on ourselves. Hillel is more a middle ground, and he teaches us to be realistic. What is proper and what is not proper in a relationship? If you are in an abusive relationship, this is not proper. This is not the way in which people should live. It's not conceivable. You should never be bullied by your spouse. You should never be tortured. You should never be abused. This is not a Torah life. This is not what Hashem wants from us. And Rabbi Akiva teaches us two things. One is the level of love for which we should strive towards our spouse. And the second thing he teaches us is that marriage must always be a choice. So I leave you here. May you have a beautiful Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, and remember to live a little higher. Thank you.